Dear student, you are most welcome to this session on strategic tourism policy. Tourism policy is a generic term with many interpretations. Planning is deciding about the future, but policy is a guideline for ongoing principles. Tourism has its own impacts in domains like aviation, biodiversity, health, domestic tourism, national park, etc. Government needs to set policies to have a control over the tourism impact domains. Strategic plans are the foundation upon which the tourism policies are constructed. To gain detailed knowledge on strategic tourism policies, let us discuss on the below mentioned topics. The policies and perspectives, tourism policy, planning and development, strategic tourism policy model, strategic areas that need government intervention, strategic action plan of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. The policies and perspectives. Tourism is an all-encompassing phenomenon. It has the power to attract both the rags and the riches. It has the power to unite societies and above all, it has the sources to develop the nations. A common attribute of any developed country is its developed tourism facilities. To have any development in tourism, it is necessary to develop the existing possibilities of attracting tourists, mountaineering, winter sports, fishing, hunting, beaches, spas, shrines, folk traditions and customs, pilgrimage, festivals and sporting events should likewise be developed and protected. Policies and tourism. The significance of tourism worldwide as a mechanism for economic development has meant that it is an opportunity that government cannot afford to ignore. Also, the dimensions of tourism as a multifaceted industry does not control all those factors which make up the attractiveness of a destination, and the impact of tourism on the host population can be high if it goes unorganized. Therefore, it is necessary that the options concerning the development of tourism should be considered at the highest level of government and the appropriate public administrative framework be put in place. This highest level of government is its policy of governance. Policies may be described as a set of guidelines for managing. By stating the objectives to be pursued and the means by which they are to be pursued, the government defines formally its attitude and approaches in the development. Tourism development policy of a government, called as Demand Note on Tourism in the official parlance, consists of a set of statements related to various aspects of tourism developments. It establishes a basis for developing and managing tourism and is an essential element of national or regional tourism planning. Any tourism policy should reflect the overall development policy of the country or region so that tourism is well integrated. It also evolves from the survey and analysis of present tourism development pattern and infrastructure, tourist attractions and activities along with the socio-economic and environmental factors. Importance of tourism policy. The reason for developing a tourism policy, it may be economic reasons such as increasing income, providing employment, earning foreign exchange, and using tourism as a catalyst for expansion of other sectors. Social reason for cross-cultural exchange, for introducing the country to foreigners and educating natives on the history of the nation or region along with the provision of recreation opportunity. Environmental reasons to achieve environmental conservation. The types of tourism to be developed. Tourism has many forms. These forms thrive on regional uniqueness. It is necessary to distinguish the appropriate form among the available in a region. The approach to be adopted. The approach for development, whether quality based or quantity based. The extent of development, it is the policy consideration on the extent of development to be allowed and the limitations to be imposed for the maintenance to be adopted at a medium level or encouraged to become a major sector of the company. The growth rate of tourism to be aimed. It is the speed with which the growth of tourism is aimed. Roles of public and private sectors. It is the details on the percentage of involvement by public sectors and the private sector in tourism development. Aims and objectives. It is the set of all localized point specific projections of the development program. Tourism policy, planning and development. Perspectives on development. The policies for the tourism development are made through the schemes of the administrative bodies. It is clear from the above discussion that the tourism policy of any place should have the following perspectives through its implementation schemes. The schemes that are announced should not be the populist schemes, but the ones that are useful for every citizen of the region. Every scheme should be announced with appropriate study into the program and proper research. The scheme should incorporate due consideration on the other sectors of the tourism. It is important to get the approval of the funding agencies before announcement of any scheme. Every scheme should be allocated with proper time frame for implementation. A coordination program with related sectors should be involved in the announcement of the schemes. The schemes should be announced with a contingency program so that the policies for the tourism development do not suffer failures. The schemes announced should have high importance for the users, namely tourists. The schemes should have equal importance to the beneficiaries, namely the businessmen, in particular all levels of businessmen, so that no one is left alone in the overall development. Finally, it is highly crucial to have the schemes with very minimal negative impact on the environment of the region. Planning for tourism development can take place at various levels. Some countries have national tourism development plans, and it is not unusual within this national structure to find similar planning exercises having been made for subnational regions, towns, cities, etc. The concept of planning is very wide. Planning is essentially about the utilization of tourism assets and their development into a marketable state. So, before the planning exercise begins, it is necessary to set out tourism development objectives. It is what the development plans seek to achieve. The planning exercise must include considerations of implementation, as in how the plan is to be achieved. Following from implementation, there is a need to establish a monitoring mechanism which constantly reviews the implementation of the plan against the set of objectives. Stages in tourism development planning. The establishment of objectives. The incorporation of these objectives into a policy statement. The formulation of policy guidelines to establish planning parameters. An implementation program to achieve what is set out in the plan. A monitoring mechanism to assess whether the tourism development plan is meeting its objectives. A review process to revise and refine objectives and policies as necessary. The approach to tourism planning should recognize that tourism is of worldwide significance. Planning can be used to avert the negative consequences of tourism. Tourism can be symbiotic with biodiversity conservation. Planning is multidimensional. Planning is pluralist, serving many constituencies and stakeholders. Planning is political. Strategic tourism policy model. Once again, we will recall the definition of tourism policy. It can be defined as follows: a set of regulations, rules, guidelines, directives and development or promotion objectives and strategies that provide a framework within which the collective and individual decisions directly affecting tourism development and the daily activities within a destination are taken. Not every tourism receiving country has formulated a tourism policy. In some cases, we find that written tourism policies exist. For example, in India, tourism policies are formulated in the 5-year plan itself. Tourism policy making is seen by Hall 2000, para 10 to 15, as first and foremost a political activity influenced by the economic, social and cultural characteristics of a particular society and by the formal structures of government and other features of the local political system. Policy involves concerns of the political debate about what the agenda is, what the issues are, who is involved or affected, and the alternative courses of action to address the problems. One area of argument in tourism is the extent to which the policy and planning overlap, and indeed much tourism policy development occur in the context of the planning processes. There is a variation between planning and policy. Planning is a process that occurs up to the point of decision making. Planning is the basis of policy making. Policy denotes the formal adoption of a position by government. National level policies may not be stated separately but must be inferred from plans developed. Many times policy and planning overlapping but distinct. Policy is concerned with the ongoing principles and broad goals that guide the actions of a government body. Evaluation of tourism policy. When discussing about the tourism in any destination, there are many policy areas which have to be evaluated. As tourism develops, the economic impacts are instant. The social and cultural changes emerge over a much longer term and are difficult to recognize. Particularly in developing countries, the government has undertaken the entrepreneurial role. Developing countries mostly rely on international tourist arrivals. In some countries, it might be recommended that tourism is developed in an enclave rather than in an integrated way. This means that tourism is developed with the idea of segregating visitors and the host community. For example, Mediterranean coastal tourist destinations like Greece, Italy and Spain, such a strategy has been implemented. Implementation of enclave policy permit that there may be good economic and social reasons why an enclave policy is adopted. It does permit the attention of infrastructure into a location which results in rising of economic elevation. Policy guidelines are to be set first and then tourism is to be planned. It is a process which has to be based on a realistic assessment of what government wants to achieve from its tourism sector and how this achievement can be attained. The process will require coordination between the public and private sectors, with the latter being the main implementing force. As the main implementation force, the private sector should be a party to the decisions taken on future options. This cooperation can be paved in the planning process. Strategic areas that need government intervention. Tourism is a complex domain that touches upon a wide range of problem areas such as aboriginal rights, aviation, biodiversity, disability and access, domestic tourism, events, health, innovation, knowledge and learning, development or land use, national parks, place identity, regional development, rural tourism, safety or crisis management, training and human resources, recreation, urban development. Each domain acts as a specific area and they are the cause for outcome of special policies. Some examples for specific policies for certain domains are Aborigines, dilemmas for Aboriginal people in Australia. Altman 1989. Authenticity and Commodification, Cohen 1988a. Joint Management of National Parks, Waring and Huskins 2001. Indigenous Policy, Whitford, Bell and Watkins 2001. Need for Cultural Understanding, Parker 1999, Robinson 1999, Simonson 2006. Aviation, Policy for Aviation in the Expanded European Union, Wheatcroft 1988. Failure of Ansett, Leaper 2002. Government Aviation Policy, Henderson 2009. Biodiversity, Setting Priorities for Intervention, Van der Duim and Caalders 2002, page 750. Disability and Access, Access and Social Inclusion alongside debates with UK Society on Disability Rights, Shaw et al. 2005. Domestic Tourism, Need in Turkey, Seckelman 2002. Event Policy, Whitford 2002. Examination of policy in various countries, for example, discusses the policy of changing structure of tourism organization in Scotland. Policy formulation can therefore be conceptualized as a process of issue identification and management where multiple issues are being simultaneously identified, framed, prioritized and deprioritized. Lawrence and Dredge 2007. A Model of Policy Development in the Context of Events, Whitford 2009. A Model of the Sport Tourism Policy Processes, Weed 2006. Health, Policy Making Dilemmas Posed by Threats of AIDS in Thailand, a Destination with a Developed Sex Industry, Cohen 1988b. India's The National Health Policy 2002 makes it clear that government policy supports medical tourism. Payment for such services have been considered as a deemed export. Innovation, Innovation Policy, Jalagar 2010, paragraph 9 to 10. Innovation Networks, Romero and Costa 2010. Knowledge and Learning, The Knowledge Management Approach for Innovation and Related to Sustainable Tourism, Jim Macbeth et al. 2004. Achieving Competitive Advantage, Stambulis and Skyanis 2003. Development or Land Use, Provision of Land and Marketing Efforts, Reed 1997, page 570. Conflict over Land Use, MacArthur 1992, Motazavi 1997. National Parks, User Fees, Buckley 2003. Environmental Policies, Territorial Conflicts and Efforts to Control Tourism, Kent 2006. Protected Areas, Moore and Wheeler 2009. Place Identity, Contentious Policy Issue, Dredge and Jenkins 2003a. Singapore, Saunders 2004. The promotion of national identity can be ideological concern of tourism, Kavaura 2007. Political Legitimacy, Burns 2008. Regional Policy, Regional Policy in Regard Land Use and Access to Fishing Lakes in Canada, MacArthur 1992. European Union Regional Development Fund, Pearce 1992. Regional Distribution of Tourism, Towson, Timothy and Osterk 2003. Japanese government investment in local tourism projects. M. Cooper and Flair 2006. Rural tourism policy. Rural tourism agriculture policy conflicts. Sharpley and Craven 2001. Rural tourism. Meyer 2006. Policies are influenced by ideological arguments on tourism. There are many different ideological positions that are taken when developing policy. Liberalism, social democracy, communism and mercantilism are the characteristics of 4 different types of political economic systems. Strategic Action Plan of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Strategic Action Plan has been released by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India has been given below. Potential strategies. India has been able to achieve significantly higher growth than the world average in international arrivals in the last few years. This can be further increased by development of tourism infrastructure, strategic marketing and publicity measures under the established Incredible India promotional brand, development of human resources, development of niche tourism products like medical and wellness tourism, adventure, rural and MICE tourism as a natural choice. Market research to facilitate policies and programs, effective monitoring of tourism projects. Engaging the stakeholders. Ministry of Tourism will have regular interactions and meetings with various stakeholders to maintain a continuous flow of ideas and taking new or corrective measures to perform its task efficiently. Building knowledge and capabilities. With active interactions with our stakeholders, various plans and programs would be continuously prepared and implemented. Knowledge and capabilities of the officers and staff would be enhanced by refresher training programs, deputing them to national and international seminars or workshops on new areas of tourism development site, visits to successful tourism spots, learning from the best practices around the world, etc. Regular market surveys and studies will be carried out to understand the requirements of tourists as also the impact of past promotional measures to take requisite corrective or new policy initiatives. Conclusion. In this session, we have discussed mainly about the perspectives of tourism policies, strategic action plan in tourism field, how to develop them and areas where there is a need for government intervention and strategic tourism action plan laid down by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Thank you.